Hello and welcome back to another week of Sambo iRacing. We are in the final week of the season. It is week 12, season 1, 2024. We are in the Formula Vee at Laguna Seca for what should be a fantastic week of racing. This track and car combo, it feels like they were made to go together. It's a wonderful, twisty little track. There are a couple of overtaking opportunities, although not that many, so qualifying will always be important around here. If you're new to the channel, thanks so much for taking the time to find me and watch this guide. What we do is we do a lap in the car, in the cockpit, where I slow it down, and then we go, as always, to a full-speed chase cam, and then we're back in the cockpit for a full-speed rundown with the driving line on. Whew, let's go for it. Righty-ho, so just before we start, some things I'll mention. So, I always run these guides from the schedule. So, if you go into the schedule under Formula Vee, you can find any week of the season and you can load into a test session from there. Doing that is very important because it means it will give you the track temperature and state and weather and everything like that that you're actually going to be racing in. So, it's 37 degrees. It actually goes up to 38 degrees Celsius during this lap. So it gets warmer as you go on. That's about 6 degrees warmer than it was last time we were here in season 4, 2023. So it might be worthwhile getting rid of your splits, clearing them all off from the options, simply because it might be that little bit slower than it was previously. Okay. Secondly, my brake bias is down 4 clicks towards the rear. From 67.3, it's down 4 clicks towards the rear. I think that might be 65.5, something like that. I just automatically click it down as soon as I get in the car. That does make my rear end a little bit more tail happy, but I prefer that. That's the way I drive. However, you can win races. You can win all the races. You can win championships by leaving it at 67.3 on the stock. Jenny Lutzu, King of the V's, did exactly the same thing. Todd Going, exactly the same. They never touch it. But I often get asked what my brake bias is. I knock it back 4 rearwards. Okay, now let's start the lap. So, we're changing up to 4th gear just before the line when I'm hitting 134 kilometers an hour. We're trying to keep the wheel as straight as possible here. And we're moving over to the right-hand side. Now, what I'm looking for is the 2 marker. So just before the 2 marker, I'm going to start aiming my car back over towards the left, aiming for the apex, and as I get to the 2 marker, I'm going to brake in a straight line, so still aiming towards the apex. I'm going to brake briefly up to about 78% there, in a straight line, bleed it off towards the apex, making sure that you're just clipping the rumble strip on the left-hand side here. It's a double apex corner. I'm then going to run it out slightly wide. I'm going to drop it down into 3rd gear only when I'm ready to get back on the throttle, so you don't want any engine braking in this car from the gears, otherwise you will lock up and spin round. And now I'm maintaining maintenance throttle just to keep the rear planted, keeping some weight over the rear, and now I'm fully back on 100% throttle, nice and early, so that I can cut in and kiss the 2nd apex of turn 1. Well, turn 2 it actually is. Let the car drift out, keeping it in 3rd gear. And what we're looking for here is just between the 2 and the 1 marker on the left-hand side. So you want to make sure you're fully out on the rumble strip over to the left. When I watch rookie races and even in top split, some of the people that are at the back, they're only ever using the asphalt. You want to use the asphalt and the rumble strip. It's there for your needs. So when I'm between the 1 and the 2, what I'm going to do is start aiming towards the apex. I'm wanting to kiss this red hedgehog, whatever you call it, turtle, tortoise, whatever it is. It's an animal, it's small and it's red, it's on the right hand side. I'm going to aim towards that. I'm going to drop and do a nice lift down to about 14%. I'm just holding it there, and then when I know that I'm going to make the corner, I'm getting fully back on the throttle. So I'm at 100% ahead of the apex. It's a momentum car. You want to keep the speed going as much as possible. Let the car drift out, come back in onto the asphalt, go back out onto the rumble strip, and we're going to be changing up to 4th gear ahead of this next turn, ahead of turn 4. So, once I hit 134, 133 kilometers an hour, I'm changing up to 4th gear. I'm wanting to aim inside the apex because you're going to drift out with a bit of understeer. And what you want to do is, you can run over it a little bit like I have here, but ideally you'd be, a couple of inches over to the left and you're just kissing it rather than running it over. It didn't affect my time though. get it back over to the right hand side, get on the rumble strip nice and early so you know exactly where your car is planted. So where I am here is perfect. You don't want to be any further over to the right. You don't want to be going in the sand, especially with the new the new physics model, because that will slow you down. But you're wanting to be running along the rumble strip, and then just as we get to the 2 marker, as you can see now, at the 2 marker, I start getting on the brakes only very briefly, up to well, nearly half, and I'm keeping some maintenance throttle on here. And again, people will say, well, why are you on the throttle? Why are you on the brake? Aren't you going to overheat the tyres? Not in a 12-minute race, certainly not in qualifying. What you're looking to do is balance the car. So this car is all about balance by keeping some maintenance throttle on whilst you're slowing the car down with the brakes. What you're doing is you're keeping the rear planted, because this is a very slippy corner. It's also the most important corner because we're going to be on the throttle for about 30 seconds constantly after this. And also, to be able to take the hill perfectly, you need to be on the throttle really, really early and ahead of the apex here. So I'm keeping it in 4th. I've now bled off the brake. I'm now fully off the brake. When we go through this in full speed, you'll obviously see it a lot better. I'm keeping some maintenance throttle on in 4th, but as you can see, my speed has dropped down to 126 kilometers an hour. And as you can see, I'm now building back up on the throttle when I change down to 3rd gear. So I changed down to 3rd gear, and I'm still building on the throttle that I've started doing in 4th. I'm wanting to get to the apex, and as I get to the apex, I'm 100% on the throttle now, and I'm just going to hold it in there all the way up to the corkscrew. Feels amazing when you get it right. Now, the next thing, the geniuses, the genii, the plural geniuses on Reddit say that you have to take the hill in 3rd gear, but you don't. If you take turn 5 correctly, as I showed you there, and you're on the throttle nice and early, then you can get on the hill very fast, and you can change up to 4th just ahead or just at the bridge here. Keeping it flat through this next corner, turn 6. This is where everyone will crash out in the race, or you get idiots trying to overtake you on the inside but can't hold the line, and then they'll come out and hit you if you're on the outside, or vice versa. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. Now, if you keep it in 4th, the lowest my speed is going to go down to is 133 kilometers an hour. It tried to go down to 132, but didn't. So this is absolutely fine. If you keep it in 3rd, it will drop down to about 128, 109 kilometers an hour. It is not faster in 3rd. It is faster in 4th if you take turn 5 correctly. So we're doing that in a straight line. We're moving over to the right-hand side, and just before the 2, as we crest the top of this hill here, we're going to brake briefly in a straight line. So as you can see, I'm up to 70% braking, but my wheel is absolutely dead straight. If you have any turn in it, when you're at this part, especially as all the weight's been lifted off your car, if you've got anything on, you're just going to spin it round. Don't do that. Also, don't try and overtake into the corkscrew. If you're watching one of my guides, the chances are you're not one of the top 2 or 3 people in the world on the whole. And even when these guys do it, it's risky, and you've got to rely on the other car making room for you. If you're in the mid splits, even if you're in top split mid pack, it's not going to be worthwhile your time trying to overtake into here. I say that now. I might try it, but I'll only try it on someone who I trust, and if I make my my overtaking feelings known well in advance by my car positioning. Anyway, so we're braking in a straight line. Oh, I get up to 80%. Didn't even know that, so quite hard. And then, as you can see, I'm now trailing it off, and as I trail it off and start reducing it, I'm now turning the car. I'm keeping it in 4th gear, still in 4th gear, gonna be in 4th gear until we're ready to come back on the throttle. I'm now putting a little bit of maintenance throttle on as I bleed off the brake, and that's so that I can get the rears with some weight on them again. So I'm now up to 23%, and just here at the apex, taking a nice amount of curb, nice amount of sand on the left-hand side. That's perfectly fine. I'm now down to 3rd gear, only at this time. I'm going to be back on 100% throttle before I come off the apex, and you get people say aim at the double tree, which I always think is the one over to the left above my left tyre here. I'm not sure. I aim at the single tree that's to the right of it, and I'm fully on the throttle. And now you can take a little bit of sand on the right-hand side as well. leaving it in the throttle. Obviously this is where watching the full speed lap obviously helps, so you can see what I'm doing. So for this second to last turn, so what we're going to do is we're over onto the left hand side, we're on the rumble strip, and just after we pass the 2 marker, so we get to the 2, we're fully on throttle, and then what I'm going to do is a big lift down to about 10% there or thereabouts, and now I'm going to maintain it, hold the throttle, now I'm back up to 50%, and I'm just managing the rear of my car with the throttle, using the throttle to turn, and I'm back on full throttle as I get off the rumble strip. Hold it as best as you can. Try not to go any further out to the left. People will spin here in races anyway. And then we're just looking for one more good corner. And it's a tricky one. So I'm moving over to the right-hand side. Now, in previous guides, I didn't actually brake whilst on the rumble strip. But with my rear bias now 4 clicks back, during the testing here that I did on the dozen or so laps that I did, I found that I could actually make it here. So midway between the 2 and the 1 marker, I'm going to brake in a straight line up to about 90%, just under that. So again, I'm in a straight line. As I bleed off the brakes, I'm turning towards the apex. I'm dropping it down into 3rd gear at the apex, whilst I've got a bit of maintenance throttle on so I don't lock up the rears. Now, ideally, what I'd like to do is have my wheels either to the left of this red thing, the curbing, or to the right of it. I've gone over it, but this was my fastest time, and it didn't actually slow me down, but it did mean that I had to do a little bit of a correction on the steering wheel. And I am back up to full throttle. And now I'm going to hold it in 3rd for the remainder of the lap. Now, if you're in a qualifying lap, then just do as I do and just go in a dead straight line here, because that is the shortest. If you're obviously in a race here, you'll be wanting to move over towards the left-hand side. But in the qualifying, you're just trying to get over the line as fast as possible. And I do so in a 1:41.559. Park up nicely. And right, let's run through it from the chase cam. Okay, here we are in the chase cam for a full speed run through. Zoom in a bit. Right, over to the right hand side, looking for the 2 marker, brake it sharp, kiss this apex down to 3rd, nice trail brake there as you can see in the inputs, that's what you're looking for there at turn 1. Over to the left hand side, lift, back on the throttle. Keep off the sand, up to 4th, kiss the sausage, so to speak. Right, looking for the 2, braking briefly, back on the throttle nice and early. Up to 4th gear. Don't kiss that sausage or it will spin you off. Trying to keep your wheel as straight as possible. Kiss this rumble strip, over to the right hand side, get to the top, brake hard, trail it off down to 3rd now, keep in the gas, up to 4th, over to the left hand side, looking for the 2 marker, big lift, build back on, balance it, back over to the right hand side, midway between the 2 and the 1, brake in a straight line, over to the left hand side, back on the throttle, keep it straight. So nothing to it. Right, we'll run through one last time in the cockpit. Final time, let's go. So nice and wide entry. Kiss the apex, back out wide, on the throttle. It's been a while since I've seen the driving line around here, so it'll be interesting to see what it recommends. That's not too bad. Up to 4th. Yeah. We'll be inside that line. The line really makes you want to go the long way around. Thanks for watching another week's worth of lap guide. Yeah, your support is much appreciated. I'll see you again next week. Oh yes, for a special week 13 video on tips with the Vee. It's not going to be as long as the last one, I promise.